All right. I talk loud. I'm going to go ahead and call the budget committee meeting for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 to order. Everybody please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's working out. Good. All right, so the budget is something that always everybody has to keep in mind. It's your money. That's why we have citizens involved, and that's why we have a full council here. So keep that in mind. There is no rubber stamping. This is what you guys want, not anything else. First item on the agenda is to elect a budget chair.
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Why don't we start over, say your name and present, and we'll start with that one.
Alan Pointer.
He's present. Sean Warren, Budget Committee member, present.
Thank you.
Robert Warden, President.
Adam Hamm, present.
Mark Rudge, present.
Randy Thomas, present. David Smith, present.
Nikki Wood, present. Valerie Frisley, present.
Al Miller is here.
Okay,
James Carlisle, present.
very good.
And the sheriff present.
Very good. All right. So we are missing Mary Kay, and everybody else is present except for, we obviously have a vacancy. So we have enough for a quorum. The next item on the agenda now is the election of a budget chair. This will be the person who will be running the meeting from now on. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate the city manager.
Don't believe the city manager can be that. He's not part of the budget committee.
How about Linda Sarah? She's been doing good for the last few years.
Experience.
I'll second that also. Is there anybody else that you want to nominate? All right. I have a motion I'll make a motion to elect Linda Sherrick, Budget Committee Chairperson. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All not in favor, raise your hand and say no. Sorry, Linda, you're out again.
Okay.
Can't believe you showed up.
I know, I should,
See what happened?
I should, yeah, I should give this off.
It's just because you're so good.
6 years experience. Okay.
There you go.
So next on the agenda, we have the election of the Budget Committee Secretary.
May I speak to that, Madam Chair? I like to have a elected secretary. I will do the minutes, but we like them signed when everything is done, and you folks meet so rarely that it would be nice if you would authorize someone to sign the minutes after they are completed for the record, because you guys may or may not meet for a while, or they may not, or get done by the next meeting. So I'm asking that you elect and authorize a secretary to review my minutes and authenticate them.
Do I hear any volunteers?
I nominate Adam.
Okay,
That was a volunteer.
Dave has nominated Adam to be the committee secretary. Do I hear a second? I second. So we have a motion to nominate Adam as our secretary by Dave, seconded by Sean. Are there any other discussion?
Can I nominate 2 people?
Yourself?
No, I was gonna nominate the mayor. Because if Adam can't do it, the mayor can. If I can nominate him.
Well, but we're only having one
Yeah,
one
I don't
person.
see it as a problem. It's just
yeah,
reading
because
it.
because all they're gonna do is.
It's just a matter of-
Yeah. Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, so, we have, nomination of Adam as the secretary by David and Sean. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye. Any opposed?
No.
So Adam is our secretary. Okay. So I'm going to turn this over now to the budget measure.
There's people in the waiting room.
Thank you. Good evening. Most of you I've gotten the privilege of working with already. Some of you I have not. I'm still the new kid on the block since all of you have been through this before within this setting. And every city does a little bit different. So I want to respect the past and not, but also interject a little bit of my own knowledge in this particular field. Before I start with the budget message, I should mention the fact that I do enjoy budgeting, which I know makes me a little unique. And I've been involved in public sector budgeting since I was a city councilor in 1987. So, and I respect the Oregon process. It's different than any other state. But the emphasis and requirements for citizen involvement really sets an example of what it should be going on in every state. The word budget comes from an old French word, budget, meaning little bag. It was customary to bring the statement of financial policy to the House of Commons in a leather bag. The original meaning was more about the bag than it was the substance. However, Oregon state public budgeting laws require a budget message. Budget message explains the proposed budget and significant changes in the local government's financial position. The budget officer designated by the city council proposes a budget for the operational plan for 24-25. The budget committee approves a budget, which then is sent to the city council, where they will adopt a budget by the end of fiscal year June 30, 2024. While I have the honor of preparing and assembling the budget and presenting it tonight to the budget committee, I cannot and would not claim sole creation of this document. The work of many members of the city staff have been involved in this process to date. It is, however, the budget committee that has the most challenging work. The Budget Committee is providing the community's perspective as it relates to the expenditure of funds, prioritization of limited resources, the foundation of our municipal corporation operational plan for the next fiscal year. This is not an easy task. In the city's recruitment advertisement for Budget Committee members, it is stated, the Budget Committee is the entire city council and an equal number of volunteer citizens, total 14, to review the proposed city budget until they can agree upon and vote to approve. Since we are a 14-member budget committee, though technically we're 13 because we have an empty seat on the citizen side of the equation. It requires by law that at least 8 of you agree to whatever the document is you send to the city council. Even if there is only 8 of you in the meeting, when you make the vote, it still takes 8 votes to approve a budget document you send to the council. So I want to talk a little bit about financial policy, as that is one of the requirements of the budget message. Well, I've only been here 4 months. It is transparent to me. That transparency is the intention of the budget officer and of this municipal corporation. I am to present a document that anyone and everyone can significantly participate in this self-governing process of financial knowledge and planning. It is recognized that it is a balancing act between limited resources, conservative expenditures, and yet service orientation for the municipal organization. It is acknowledged that our municipal organization does not have a tax base for revenue, which makes it both unique and challenging to have the revenue required to provide services found in most cities and communities that have tax bases and funding. The city council is unified around the concept that they have 8 months serving together as a team, and there are significant priorities for this coming year. They include the wastewater treatment plant replacement project, about $15 million. Phase 2 of the wastewater treatment plant project should be about $8 million. Code enforcement, livability issues and enforcement, staffing levels, maintain affordability, and yet provide services. Personnel is one of the most valuable resources within the municipal corporation, and is currently the most consistent unit of the organization as it relates to institutional memory, service, and knowledge. This proposed budget includes resources for 3% COLA increase across the board. 6, staffing. Last year's budget, the budget we're in right now, included the following statement. The budget for personnel services for 23-24 is 17% lower than the previous year due to staffing reductions. Councils and citizens should understand reduced staffing means reduced level of service. It is a budget officer's role to propose the balance of cost and services for the next fiscal year. It is the budget committee's role to determine that balance. The budget message is supposed to talk about changes, significant and otherwise. Number 1, the city clerk position is proposed in this budget. The funding source as below: 25% out of wastewater. Without a full-time public works director, additional administrative support will be needed. You will notice the decrease in personnel costs for wastewater created by the staff plan. 25% funded out of code enforcement, the paperwork, the warning letters, documentations, and the tracking. Preparation for the administrative hearings we expect to have
with our new plan for code enforcement will require some assigned staff and hours. And 50% funded out of general fund. The paper house needs some serious attention. Even without the fact of dozens of boxes of stored materials, the front two offices of City Hall, the former mayor's office, behind council chambers, and the garage that our street staff calls home, our administrative staff support needs for the wastewater treatment plant, grant administration, and general administrative support. We also need some administrative support for our cemetery management. Item 2 change. Code enforcement funds for staffing and costs. Code enforcement line and community development is proposed at $22,000. This is for towing costs, costs for hearing officer, costs for communications. Number 3, the wastewater treatment plant grant. I am proposing all grant and plant development activities costs are in, should miss something here, are in the wastewater reserve fund. Now, this year's budget has all that grant money mixed in with the operational money of the wastewater treatment plant. What this budget does is propose to move all the grant fund and the grant and the plant project itself into the capital reserve fund rather than the wastewater treatment plant operational fund. It is in the best interest of the organization to have the wastewater operational budget be exactly that, the wastewater operational activities, without millions of dollars passing through, which are unrelated to the costs of our current staff and plant. There is a transfer of $1.1 million in the proposed budget from the wastewater treatment plant operational fund to the capital reserve fund, which is the sum of additional funds received based upon past rate increases to add to the grant funds. The proposed budget includes a 5% increase in the wastewater rate, which is a break from our recent history of annual 10% increases. While at least 1 year of these past increases have been swallowed by inflation and by the city's action to change the equivalent dwelling unit formula, the city still needs additional funds for developing new wastewater plant. Wastewater equipment line, there is no known plan for new equipment in the way of a vehicle or instrumentation, though there is a budgeted line item should it be needed. Item 4, which I think is of significant change. Designated funding for I&I, inflow and infiltration. It is one of those projects that will never disappear. That does not mean the city should not be doing something about I&I. The wastewater capital reserve fund under capital outlay is both the grant expenditures for the new plant as well as other capital funds with the intent of the city doing something about I&I. $100,000 will be only the start of what is needed to address the issue of water getting into our sewer lines. When water gets into our sewer lines, the sewer treatment process requires a treatment of both water and sewer, since it can be separated. The goal is to clean and seal sewer lines to slow down the amount of water entering our sewer collection lines. Addressing I&I will decrease the amount and the cost of wastewater treatment. 5, building maintenance. I'm proposing additional funds for building maintenance. An updated analysis of needs for the condition of City Hall and Senior Center could be a first step in looking for funds to address these needs. Small city allotment grant, our street supervisor requested, I budgeted for $150,000 for a street grant. Dennis actually serves on an advisory board for the state SCA grant program. He wants to go for another grant this year. My opinion is that there's no reason why you should not expect to get one of these grants at least every other year. Qualifications and your situation here definitely puts you high on the list. You're challenged a little bit because you don't have a school here and they favor projects that improve school safety. But your streets are in a condition that there's no reason why you shouldn't be planning on getting $150,000 grant every other year for street improvement. Street project, we've not done an extensive street project recently. We have been saving our gas tax revenue. So this proposed budget is $90,000 for a street project beyond the potential grant. Also in this proposed budget is two significant transfer changes. Money being transferred into tourism and community development. We have recently gained a significantly greater understanding of the allowable use of our transit lodging tax program revenue. There are limitations on the 1.5% of the 7.5 collected tax revenue that requires its expenditures be related to marketing type activities. This could be defined by council to include the funds expended for the fireworks. The other 6% of the tax collected funds do not have limitations as to how it is expended. My projection is you will receive about 150,000 TLT money next year. And still find 75,000 in the general fund and 75,000 of it in tourism. The proposed budget splits extended revenue 50% general fund, 50% tourism. This is a significant change from our recent past of 70% tourism and 30% general fund. This facilitates two additional activities. There's another transfer that occurs from the general fund to the community development fund. The transfer supports code enforcement, which enhances city tourism. This proposed transfers $25,000 from the general fund to allow for staffing and code enforcement expenses. The new split also facilitates the ability to do a capital project in the general fund. The new split may or may not support the tourism industry. However, it does support the livability of our community. This may be used for work on the senior citizen center, or city hall, or the library, but it would mean improvement to city facilities. Grants, I have budgeted 3 grants. The ARPA funds that we have on hand, small city allotment grant, which we should be able to receive, 75,000 in the tourism fund. If the city sought an Oregon Parks Recreation grant and used 25,000 of tourism funds that's there, it would help you down enough funding for a $100,000 project. It could be used for any kind of capital project or tourism related project, such as a city-owned public restroom or park improvement. Electronic communications in the general fund expenditures new name line item. There are several elements within the city's electronic communication system, which we are, and I quote, not up to contemporary professional standards. In addition, the city of Lakeside is not currently meeting state requirements for achieving our electronic communications. That changed the first to last month. That has been updated. We are required to archive all of our emails, and we were not doing that. We were archiving incoming, we were not archiving outgoing until about 2 weeks ago. It is my recommendation that the city provides city-funded email addresses for our entire council. For our current practice is just for the mayor, and we are making improvements and upgrades to our city website. There was a 2-page addendum I did at the very end of the budget package. And it's from our IT department. And Janet talked about the several types of IT related projects that we could be working on. Explanation. Self-governance comes with the individualistic reasonings all humans have as a part of their being's presence. As appointed budget officer, I've provided some of the explanations as it relates to the changes in the proposed budget. Throughout the actual budget document, I have provided additional explanations. Summary. The municipal organization of the city of Lakeside is in transition with one of the longest time periods of record of not having an active, empowered governing body. While perhaps a little scary, It was my honor and privilege to be selected to provide the administrative leadership during the past 4 months. The challenge and opportunity to serve in this rare situation was one of the callings that caused me to seek the position. The evening of my interview, I was asked by someone, not in the interview process, but waiting outside, I was asked, where was I from? It is my personal and professional opinion that the question before this municipal organization and community should be, where are you going? Self-governance can be scary and uncertain, and everyone has individualistic reasonings for wanting to see or experience something to happen or to change within your community. You have parameters, including some that have been ignored, such as livability issues enforced by an agreed upon code, wastewater maintenance, which results in a higher degree of hygiene, general preventive maintenance, which can prevent higher costs at a later time, stormwater challenges. No, I can't stop the rain, which there is no plan in place to address or improve the situation, and the lack of resources due to a majority agreement not to self-tax to afford or provide additional services. It's my honor and privilege to present the proposed 24-25 budget to the Lakeside City Budget Committee for your review, inquiries, deliberations, considerations, adjustments, and hopefully approval. At least 8 members of this committee must agree upon a budget to forward it to City Council for your consideration and adoption for their consideration and adoption. I would encourage 2 significant activities. 1, please listen to your community. You are the link for this financial plan between the municipal organization and the community. Please use your own reasoning to provide your perspective, but honor the process that you are part of a very large committee seeking an agreed upon path for moving forward the city of Lakeside. I have a couple of addendums in my comments here. There were 2 pages that I added to the back of the packet. One was a memo from our city engineer relating to the DEQ requirement that we check 20%, Cameron, 20%? Help me out here, Rick. Camera or inspect 20% of our sewer collection system every year. DEQ requirement. We have not exactly met that standard. I'm not sure if I can tell you when. So,
Madam Chair, may I ask the city manager a question on that? Okay, would that also help with the inflow and the infiltration?
yes, so it tells us where our problems are. They're linked. Closely. That's why I've got my right man, the Goodrick, in the room.
Is there a possibility of grants?
It's considered maintenance, so it's pretty tough to, it's state required maintenance.
Yeah.
It's tough to get grants for state required maintenance.
Well, I have a question in regards to that. Does that mean that the closed system is not closed?
Yes.
So there is water getting into the flow system that shouldn't be getting in.
Maybe Rick can share the experience we've had recently.
On a normal system, you're only gonna do, you're still gonna get about 10% of it, even if it was completely tight.
Okay.
But with the flows we have and the breaks that we have, we were at 100% plus during the storms. that are on line.
So that just puts more stress on the plant.
Correct, and all pumps,
Right.
all the equipment.
And well, chemicals you lose
Right.
because you're treating stuff that doesn't need to be treated.
Because when I was reading it, there's, I'm thinking, wait a minute, we don't have storm drain, water going from the storm drains into our system. So evidently that explains we have leaks. Okay. Well, it is a. This.
Imagine that, right? 40 years.
And you also should have received, in the back of your packet, a 1-pager from our IT department with 3 or 4 different activities as it relates to improving our electronic communication system as well as meeting state law. I wanted to mention, I'm grateful that Rick is here this evening. I asked him to attend. These are institutional memory, and he's also the person that, when it comes to the wastewater side of this operation, is the brain trust, of course. The other thing one of the other things I want to comment is I handed out just tonight a memo about how I came up with the idea of a 5% increase. You get a rate study done, 2020, 2019, who gave you the recommendation that you needed to increase your rate annually 10% for 5 years. And so my next question was, well, have we done it? And the answer was, well, sort of. We did it 1 year, we didn't do another year. We did 20% 1 year. We changed the formula, so people were paying less because we changed the formula of equivalent dwelling units, which meant a loss of income. And it's interesting when you look at the year-to-year basis of our increases. Not based upon the rate that you set, but based upon the actual revenue. 1920, you increased your revenue by 3.6%. 2021, you did it by 9%. 21-22, you did it by 3%. 22-23, you did it by 24%. And the projection for this year ending is going to put you at 7.8. And if you add up the 5 years together, you have increased your revenue 50.7%. However, there have been other things that have occurred. The rate study was based upon 3% annual inflation, and it's been more than that, twice that throughout the period. Construction percentage of increase for costs has increased 15% annually. And so while you may have sort of met the 50% goal of 5 years, I did not think, I guess what I'm proposing is that you cut the increase in half of what you've done for the last 5 years, an average of 10%. Just do 5%. A year from now, you'll know a lot more about what that phase 2 is going to cost you. You'll know a lot more about where you are as it relates to funding and grants for that second phase. So this proposed budget is recommending a 5% increase across the board for our sewer customers, and a 10% increase for the step and stage systems that are costing more than what they are paying for because of the amount of staffing it takes to deal with the state step systems. That is what is in this proposed budget. It's your job, as I mentioned earlier, to find that balance and represent the community and end up where you want to end up. This budget is based upon that 5% increase. So, did I hand out the resolution?
2024-07.
So this whole budget thing is really about this resolution. Because this resolution defines what the authority is to spend, what the city has to spend. Now, at the May council meeting, they're going to pass another resolution because we've overspent one particular line that's in that resolution from last year. The line, we don't if you spend more in chemicals and less in equipment, that is not what matters. What matters is each line in that resolution. That is the limitation of what we can spend for personnel, what we can spend for materials and services, for debt service. That resolution is so say the control figure as to, once the budget is adopted, that is what staff is allowed to expend. Council's. And so what that is a draft resolution based upon the proposed budget. I'm not expecting you to approve the budget as I wrote it, but I wanted you to understand that, you know, that resolution and however we change it based upon how you change the proposed budget, that is our guideline. That is our rule. That is our authorization. When you adopt the budget, you're adopting the expenditure of budget. Now, if you look on the last three lines, you'll have the total of the budget. You'll have the total of funds that are not budgeted. In other words, we have money in this budget document that we're not authorizing to spend. Well, unappropriated funds. Those funds are not being appropriated, so therefore they're not allowed to be spent. So those last three lines sort of gives you the totality of the picture as to what we are proposing to be authorized to spend, what we are proposing not to spend. I have money for next year, and what the total sum is based upon the proposed budget. There's one exception about the unappropriated fund involving 23,000 that the library has a trust that we can't spend, which gets counted as funds in our budget, but we set it as unappropriated spending because we're not allowed to spend trust money. So, but everything else there is our money that we're not spending and holding over for starting next year. Anyway, that concludes my budget message, and I would be happy to respond to any additional questions. But again, I brought to Frederick, and when it comes to the sewer stuff, wastewater stuff, we've got the best mind in the room.
I'm assuming your last paragraph was the presentation of the budget.
I hereby present.
Has everyone had a chance to review the forms? I have to thank you. I think you simplified it from last year. And I like your little notes. I appreciate that.
On the street fund, there was one error, I believe. The personnel in the street fund, they're supposed to figure 75%, not 66. Somewhere in the narrative, it says that our street supervisor is 25 general fund, 66% street, and that actually is 75%.
Okay, so has everyone had a chance to review the budget? So, if you want to, we can do it the way we have over the last couple of years, so it's go line by line, is that okay with everyone? Okay. And if there's any questions, or if you want to discuss anything, please. Okay, so, first one is general fund. 01, resource description. We have available cash on hand from the budget, proposed from the budget officer of $500,000, up from $467,051 from adopted last year. Interest, line 3, we're going from 2,000 from last year's adopted budget to 15,000. COVID reimbursement, line 4, 0. Fireworks donation, there's nothing there. Miscellaneous review, revenue is 800, up from 500. The transit tax revenue tourism, 50%. Last year was 35,000, 75,000. It's going into the general fund this year.
I have a question about that. 14% is the legal requirement. Aren't we locking ourselves into $54,000 of money that can't be pulled out of the tourism fund if we do this?
What was it? 14?
Right, it's the 6%, which can be used for anything,
Right.
and then
The
70/30 for the
1.5% was the 70/30.
Right.
So there is no, and I think what Rick is saying is that of that 6%, you're putting 50% into general fund and 50% into tourism.
And, I'm sorry,
No.
I did a little math and that's 114% increase from last year. And it brings it to 31% of the total general fund. So the tourism, even at this 50-50 split, is a significant increase and contribution to the general.
Yet, when you look at other cities' general funds, compared to the actual tourism fund, Lakeside is way out of whack. We're talking about a 10% to a 13% size compared to an actual general fund. In other words, if you look at a general fund and you look at what a tourism fund is during the other cities in the area, they're running about 9 to 13%, whereas Lakeside is running 40%.
Almost every city in the state has very different finances. So
Yeah.
And I did a comparison.
we have one significant of all the incomes to our city. We have one significant category where we have any impact. Almost none of these other things we have any ability to increase. Investment in tourism is the only opportunity, according to this resources page, to invest in the future of our income. So the math, you mentioned, you're not wrong.
You're again.
Did you want me to stop talking?
I think, and I kind of agree with Adam, because I think right now Rick he's taken the tourism and put 50% in the 6% of the original.
Right.
50% is going into tourism, 50% is going into the general fund. We don't have any tax base. We don't have any other income except for the street taxes and things like that. So at this point, it'll be 1 year, and then we can kind of at least see how it goes. You know, if the tourism one starts growing, maybe more of it could go into the general fund and less into tourism. So
My only concern is the urgency to get the city under control. And we have major staffing issues, even with the additional person. We still have a code book that hasn't been updated in what, 5-6 years. We have, like Rick said, I went to the back office there, whatever, it's in my office or whatever. There's open boxes that look like they've been rifled through. You know, that's not cleaned up. All those files and everything need to be locked and secured. We also have, I believe Rick was saying, software that needs to be updated. We also need to do a storm plan. So these are monies that are taken away from services.
So you're thinking that instead of 75, maybe make it 100, decrease the 75 that goes into tourism to 50, perhaps?
I was looking at dropping tourism down to, and we can talk about that. I was looking at around 54,000. And And the reason I think we're okay with doing that for tourism this year is the tourism budget is $301,000.
That's, I'm looking at that right
Yeah,
now.
that's a lot of money.
A significant part of that 75,000 is anticipated, so that's not. So the real money is 225.
Which is, the only programs I know of are the programs that the LBO throw.
We're gonna talk about
We
that.
can cover those. And what I'm talking about is money going into the general fund and the need for that money to be in the general.
Well, what we can do is, why don't we put a question mark on this one? Go back to, and then when we hit the tourism, because the cash carryover is 150,000 in tourism.
Right, and there is an unallocated balance in tourism of 54,000.
It's
So
also,
that can be pulled.
it's also unallocated in the general fund, so if there were needs deemed necessary, there are funds both unappropriated and in the contingency to address a lot of things.
And this is the way I look at it. I think our citizens deserve to have a well-functioning city.
Sure, and I think
And
that's
that's
what
where I would prefer to put the money. I think tourism will do perfectly fine with the lack of that. I mean, we have things like software updates, and that code book is ridiculous. We have codes, we have ordinances floating around everywhere. That thing needs to be cleaned up this year. Also, let's talk about grave sites. We don't have a map of the grave sites. We have nothing on paper. What if things goes tomorrow? That's, you know, and that's hurting the legacy.
I thought Dennis has the one.
And within this budget is appropriated funds to put more attention to that. A lot of these issues you're bringing up are addressed in the budget already without any changes.
I don't see that.
But it's also manpower too.
Yeah, it's the manpower.
It's the thing, what Mark's focusing on more is the fun thing to be there for extra staffing that we need to take care of.
Right.
Correct, exactly. And I'm not getting into the specifics at this point because we're on the revenue right now, but I'm thinking that revenue really needs to be where the citizens are benefiting from it.
I have a question.
Whoever.
There's another issue with this too, is the general fund is an unrestricted fund, and tourism is
Right.
a highly restricted
Right.
fund. And you can always, if priorities call for it, move money from the general fund to tourism if a need arises, but you can never go back the other way.
Right.
So it's not wise to restrict funds where you don't have a need to.
Didn't the agreement we just heard from the lawyer said that those funds that sit in the tourism fund, they're still there. I don't think they're now covered by many of those restrictions that we previously had.
Once you put $1 in the tourism fund, it's restricted.
Right.
And you can't use it for anything except what state law allows for tourism.
So what you're saying is the city doesn't determine what we consider, how we use our own tourist fund?
That's right.
Okay.
There are very strict limits on it.
And that would be a place marker, I understand right now, but it's something you really need to consider, you know.
Yeah, considering we don't have a tax base, we don't have,
Right.
we have limited funds coming in from other sources besides the citizens.
And I do agree with Adam in the regards that, hey, we've got to protect and build the tourism in this town.
Yeah.
Because that's where our money is gonna be coming from. No disagreement with them on that at all. But I'm just saying, right now, for this year.
Well,
we
and the
need
thing is,
to
I think we
Change the focus.
we can,
Yeah.
because there's already, because we didn't spend that much last year. So we have, I mean, I think we have 150,000 cash carry. And if we put 50,000, that's gonna be $200,000, and that's not even with the possible grant. That's $200,000 that would be available for tourism. Change this, the 50% that's going into general fund from 75 to 100,000. That would give you an extra 25,000. That, so does everyone think that that's a? Did you have a?
I did have questions and bear in mind that I may not be on the top shelf of a lot of theory and thoughts. But just for my own clarity, maybe you help me out. It's funny, it's okay, but you need to know. This proposed budget that we have right here, this is money we already have now. Are we speculating this 500,000, or do we have the 500,000 as of this day, cash on hand? Is that correct?
500 right now.
500,000.
And so based on that 500, just for my,
At the end of June,
and then
we should have about that.
and then all of these other revenues coming in, we'd have a total of $741,000 that we're working on. So with some of these budget parts, these are budgeted about for the amount, do these get carried over? Let's say we use, we have the rent revenue for $3,500. I mean, if we only use 2,000, does that get carried over to the following budget?
Well, this is, the one that we're looking at right now is just the money that's coming in.
Right.
So the requirements, how much we're going to be spending is the next.
So this is, okay, good.
This is all income.
This is income.
This is just strictly income.
I appreciate it.
We haven't even hit how much, where we're going to be spending. That's the big page behind.
That's the end of the page.
Yeah, that's the every page. So is everyone in agreement to raise the 75,000 to 100,000 and then decrease the 75 in tourism to 50? Yeah. And really, if, you know, the transient tax, if we get more tourism and things like that, it grows, that is going to be.
Yeah, that's gonna be our economic driver.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And who determines on the expension, city council itself, on using that money?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, if the tourism,
the city council's work on that.
right, within the tourism, account. I think the last city council meeting, the Lakeside Business Owners Association came and asked for some funds to put on 4 events over the course of the year, but they were doing it one event at a time. And so out of that tourism fund, I think that's the money that's going to help them at the events.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one is line 8. And this is where some of the revenue is coming in. We have the alcohol tax revenue, about 35,000. Okay, that's up from 30,000. Okay. Cigarette tax revenue, 1,200 up from 1,100. Garbage franchise revenue, 17,500 up from 14,000. Cable franchise revenue, 30,000 up from 25,000. Rent revenue, 3,500 up from 3,000. This is rental of the buildings. Okay.
It's the money from that we get. Senior Citizen Center gives us $300 a month.
Hangar rent or lease rent, 1,500 stays the same.
I have a question. Yeah.
Sure.
Is this for the whole year?
Yeah,
That is probably, don't you understand this? I'll run it for 2,000 for the year.
Randy, it's important to understand that they own the buildings, we're renting them the land.
But is it on the land?
and they have contracts.
Okay, we're getting $1,500 a year. How much is the cost for irrigation to irrigate that? To mow it.
Yeah, that was something Rick had brought up to.
I'm just thinking that, how come we can't raise the rent on this?
A lot of them are contracts, that you know, multi-year contracts. And the reality is, I don't think there is any reason why the city cannot negotiate.
Well, of course,
That's for another meeting though.
But yeah, it's not something that the budget.
right, I'm just thinking of
Yes.
how the.
Oh, yeah.
As far as budgeting, because we're talking about moving money
Right,
in our transit tax thing to get, put 100,000 in it. I would just, but that's a sore point. I would say, yeah.
I agree with that sore point to be discussed.
Quick question, does the library pay rent?
I'm sorry,
Does the library pay rent?
no,
City,
Well, the library is actually part of the city.
Okay,
It's part of the funding.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's a.
okay. Business license revenue, 4,000.
well, it was split out, it was included in line 15.
So, line 15 is license fees revenue. It's 3,500, down from 5,000. So, yeah, so the business license is 4,000, so it's, we actually have it up, considering they split it. Electrical and building permit revenue. Nothing. CLPUD franchise 100%, 50,000. Phone, telephone franchise, we don't have phones anymore. Is that gonna drop off now?
if it, 3 years has to be zero, has to be zero for 3 years.
So next year it'll be gone?
Yep.
Okay. The marijuana tax revenues, 4,000, up from 3,000. Planning grants, there's nothing. Grant revenue,
I got a quick question about the funding grant, if I may ask Rick on it. Whatever happened to the $1,000 a year we got from the
We still supposedly get it. It's almost an automatic. I can't find record of it, but we do
Oh,
still get
that's
it.
actually in the.
Yeah, it's in community development.
Oh, okay, never mind.
A young
There's
grant.
Another deadline.
okay, line 21 is grant revenue, there's nothing there. 22 is Wolfenstein grant for beach maintenance. And there's nothing. 25 transfer in wastewater affluent, there's nothing, so that will leave. Total sources, 741,000. Taxes estimated to be received, 0. So total resources, 741,000, down from 937,151 from last year. Okay. We have requirements now. This is where we spend the money. So our payroll, we have a total of $100,000 for payroll. And that is, payroll is split 50% city manager, 25% street supervisor, 33% utility clerk, and 50% city clerk. So it's all total. Social Security, 8,000. Workers' comp, 5,000. PERS is 9,000. Health insurance is 35,000, up from 25,000. I'm going to do my lecture now. I think the city council needs to address the cost of health insurance. And the only way that the city council can do that is to at least have within their hands options. You can't change my understanding is you cannot change your insurance date except on January, which is June, July, and January. it's a little too soon to do June and July. But if you have the information and you do decide, because there is going to be an increase of 5 to 8% of your, the insurance starting in January, according to its notes. So that if you decide to change or do it so it's a little less, you can at least inform your employees. And so that they can be aware. And the thing is, you can pay insurance less, get almost the same coverage, have a higher copay, but then you can give them a bank that they can pull from. That's money is within the city, they can pull from up to the whatever amount that you set aside for. We did that at the water district. We had 1,500 that could be used by each employee. If they didn't use it, that money still stayed with the water district. If they used the whole 1,500, then they were going to be responsible. But there are different options out there, and I think the city council needs to at least investigate it. And then you can make your decision. That's my lecture. So, number 6, unemployment stays at 2,100. Okay, 9, we have dues, travel, and conference. We have $10,000 up from 7,000. And Rick is written here, because of the new council, 3 counselors are attending the Oregon City's event last month. And he's going to encourage everyone to attend the LOC conference in October. And then so that money will be there. 10, license and fees, 7,000 up from 3. Advertising and election, 7,500 up from 1,500. 12, legal fees remains at 10,000. Electric and building fees, 0. Audit and filing fees, 12,000, same as last year. Contract services, 45,000, down from 53,000. Repairs and maintenance is 2,000, same as last year. Insurance, 17,000, up from 15,000. Telephone, 5,500, up from 3,500. Postage, 4,500, up from 2,747. Operating supplies remains 20,000. Fuel for city vehicles, 1,500, the same. Repairs and maintenance of the vehicle, 1,500, the same. Electronic communications, 5,000. Municipal court and judge is 4,500.
Could
that's-
we change the description of this
Yeah.
from municipal court and judge to hearings officer? I just want to get the whole municipal court thing.
I actually have
out
that
of my face
pencil.
and my mouth.
So we'll change his municipal court and judge to hearings officer at 4,500. Utilities, electric, water, etc., 24,000, down from 25,000. Lakeside COVID relief expenses, 0. We don't have anything on it. Grant expenses, we have nothing there. Wolfenstein family grant for beach, there's 0. Building maintenance, 18,000, up from 4,000. The Lakeside Airport is 0, was 0 last year. Total administrative expenses, materials and services is 200,000. Administrative expense, 359,100. Under Parks and Recreation, tourism promotion is 0. Multi beach maintenance is 0. Event expense is 0. 4th of July fireworks display, 0. Let's see.
I got a thought I'd like to share there. Just a note that in this budget, maintenance of the city park is under tourism, taking that off of the requirements in general.
Yeah, I think actually all of these are someplace else.
For Red Cross Lake. The Lakeside Airport with the zero, don't we spend money to mow it, where would that go?
They moved the airport out of general fund into community development.
That's its function for our city. And the airport operations seem to be sidelined to the need to have a place to spray after.
And Wolfie Beach went where? Because we love Wolfie Beach.
All those, all the parks and stuff is now sitting in tourism.
So, Adam, I didn't get your point about the funds for parking recreation. Do you repeat that?
My point was that at least on the one issue of the city park, which for the most part, it seems serves local folks. Yes, visitors could use it, but for the most part, it's serving the local children. That is not really pushing tourism, but is happily taken care of in this tourism.
So when you're talking about the playground,
The playground, the ballpark.
so you're thinking about maybe in the future, we go back to having a park and recreation category.
I think what he's saying is everything here is under tourism.
Right,
All
that is where it is.
And I believe that Wolfie Beach is a real tourism
Yeah.
push. And I agree that 4th of July is an important tourism push. But the city park and potentially debatable, the 4th of July is mainly pushed to local people as opposed to tourism.
Ooh, 4th of July is where
Is the Wednesday.
all the relatives from all around, all the people on Lake and Mount,
I get
that
it.
is a huge tourism.
I get it, but it lasts one day and it's on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I'm saying.
Well, in the,
It's
and the
tourist,
thing is, in
bottom
the
line.
past, when we have done like
Like,
we have had it on a different, on a weekend. We've had fireworks on a weekend, yeah, it's kind of been in the past.
yeah, I've heard this debate, people ask, when's the 4th of July?
Yeah, I don't,
So-
let's say, when is it? When are you doing your fireworks? So-
Yeah, my
The
point was the
interesting
city
thing
park.
is my relatives, he's the mayor of a city in California. 4th of July, he comes up here. Instead of being hometown, so.
Okay, so 43, we have the loan interest, 14,624. Down from 18,207. And the debt service principal of 22,276. Both of these together with the 8th Street property.
Now, should that be, and this is a question more for Rick, should that be identified as to what it is? You know, because you're just saying a debt service, I don't want other funds intermingled with that debt service, since it's specifically to the street property.
Yeah, but if you had more than one property, it would still be just that service. You wouldn't have to.
So you don't actually signify.
Oh, yes, you do, because, yeah, I've had more than one loan out there that I've had to do. Yeah, it could be identified.
It might be a good idea. Make sure that, you know, if we do anything with it, we properly account for it.
It's an 8th Street address.
105?
I think it is.
Yeah, 105 8th Street.
I have a thought on that as well, I know we only, and maybe there's a reason behind it, but I know we financed that debt for only 10 years. Potentially, we could refinance it for a longer period of time, drop our holding cost,
Or we saw it.
or we could, at a loss.
Interest
rate
is not much, so.
I don't know, maybe, I don't know, maybe Rick can tell us, I've heard that there are certain lending and stuff available to cities that's at different rates than the public.
And maybe that's a discussion for when
It
we get
is.
around.
And that's why I'm just putting it out there.
What we really want to do with the street property, because there are also possibilities. Yeah, doing kind of combined type of.
Not our responsibility, your responsibility.
Exactly, there you go. Put that in your hands.
Ouch.
Yes. Okay, total debt services, 45 is 36,900. 47 capital outlay, senior center roof, 100,000. It's down from 100, we never did use it last. So, total capital outlay is 100,000. Transfer to other funds, 50 is transferred to community development of 25,000, down from 50,000 last year.
And in speaking with city manager, I believe that entire 25 is being invested in the code enforcement.
No.
Transfer to tourism is 0. Total transfers 25,000. Operating contingency is 120,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance is 100,000, for total requirements of 741,000.
So, just so I understand this, and I get confused. If we add operating contingency and the unappropriated ending funding balance. And you spend all the money that's out there that we have in this budget. Next year, we'll have $220,000 back on it. Yeah. So even though we're seeing 500 now, just beware, we're starting to really getting tight.
Madam Chair? The committee added 25,000 in the revenue side.
Oh, that's right,
Where
so
did
that's
you-
gonna be changed.
Well, I need to put the 25,000 on the expenditure side.
Okay,
Gotta have a balanced
Put
fund.
that into a temporary. Can you put it there? Oh, spot.
put it in,
Because we need to get the code book updated for. More contingency, right?
put it in contingency,
Yep.
and then you can use it for wherever you want. Okay,
Thank you.
so we'll have
45.
145.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks for bringing it. So the next one is street fund. 3 are resources. So we have $290,104 cash available. It's up from 282,016. Interest revenue is 2,000. Up from 500. Highway use tax, 145,000, up from 120. Miscellaneous revenue is nothing. Central PUD franchise percentage 0. Grant revenue, 150,000. Transfer in from other funds, from the general fund is 0. Total resources except taxes to be levied is 587,104.
Oh, sorry, I have a question for the city manager, just so I know how this works with these, like the highway use tax, cigarette tax, tobacco, all that stuff. How do you know that it's gonna increase? Like, are you just shooting in the dark with that number, or do you?
No, I actually get a report from the League of Oregon Cities that they send out to all the cities. And got about 2 months ago.
Okay.
For all the state revenue. It's a 12-pager that lists, cigarettes are going down because people are smoking less, alcohol's going up because people are drinking more, that kind of report, but
Okay,
I have one further question. Are they basing those numbers on prior year?
No.
actuals?
I'm sorry, I may have answered too quickly. The numbers are based upon our population. It's a per capita amount. So their estimate is based upon last year and what they see happening in the way of actual revenue coming in and going out. The amount we receive is based upon our population. Did I answer your question?
Any other questions? If my head's down, just say it.
Okay.
Taxes collected in the year levied is zero. Total resources is $587,104. Okay. Refund. Well, this is money we're going to spend. Personnel services payroll is 60,000, down from 65. Social Security is 5,500. Workers' comp 2,000. PERS 7,000. Health insurance 20,000. Unemployment 2,000. For total services 96,500, and everything else is pretty much the same. Materials and services, dues, travel and conference 1,904, and up from 2,000. Advertising and elections 1,500, down from up from 1,200. Legal fees 1,200, same. Engineering fees 10,000, same. Auditing and filing fees 4,000, up from 3,500. Contracted services 40,000, the same. Repairs and maintenance 5,000, the same. Insurance 7,000, up from 6,500. Utilities, electric, water, etc., is 38,000, down 39 from last year.
In talking to Rick, it sounds like that is all just streetlights, $38,000 in streetlights.
Yes.
Telephone and postage 1,500, up from 1,000 last year. Operating supplies 7,500, up from 5,000. Street work maintenance 20,000, down from 25.
I had a question for Rick on this, if I can. Is that 20,000, is that where we would pull the city's portion of the manhole cover project? Did we discuss,
No, we pulled it from the 40,000 contracted services.
thank you.
21 fuel 3,000, same. Miscellaneous expense stormwater 5,000, which is zero. Building maintenance 10,000, up from 3,666. Is that for his shop? The shop?
Yeah.
Okay. Grant expense, 150,000, down from 300,000. For a total of $305,604. Capital outlay is 90,000. Total capital outlay is 90,000. Operating contingency is 45,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance is 50,000, for a total of 587,104 balance budget. Okay, next one is community development 4. Available cash on hand is 73,000, down from 73,500. Interest revenue is 0. Planning grants, nothing. Planning applications 2,000, down from 2,500. Electric and building fees 28,000, up from 25,000. Transfer in from general fund is 25,000, down from 50,000. Total resources except taxes to be levied, 128,000. Taxes estimated to be received is 0. Taxes collected, 0. Total resources, 128,000. Requirements.
I have a question real quick. Mark, when you brought up the $1,000 grant from DLCP, is that line 4? Where we have nothing right now?
That's right.
That's where it should go.
In there, Ben.
So should we add that now?
So that would be line 4.
Line 4.
Line 4.
Does that make sense, or to put it there now or not?
Are we gonna get it, Rob?
I'm not sure if that grants this year or next year.
Neither am I.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
once every 2 years. It's not every-
Okay. Personal services, payroll, 12,000. Social security is 925. Workers' comp, 325. PERS, 275. Health insurance, 10,000. Unemployment, 325.
Can I ask a question? One thing that stuck out to me, why is health insurance $10,000? My salary is 12. Well, if it's a part-time position, you don't need for health insurance.
Well, I think it's 25% of a
Yeah.
full-time person.
Yeah. Oh,
25% of the-
Oh, we're going for.
This is the one that's gonna do several jobs, and one of their jobs is a quarter of the job is for.
They're in different budget.
I was-
That was.
right.
I was still under the.
Yeah.
The question still rings because that's still only 25% of the health costs for that individual.
When I look at the other requirements of the other funds, the health insurance is running roughly 30 to 35% of total salary. And this one just popped out, that it was 86%.
Don't you think the social security and the workers' comp is pretty low?
It's only a quarter of someone's already. So if you look at the things on, it's at line 1, 25% for personnel expenses, so it's only like a quarter.
Is it too much to ask just for a clarification on the 10,000, whether or not that's 25% of a person's health insurance? Because
It's not too much to ask, but we don't know what we're gonna be paying this individual. And as long as I stay within the total of that section, I'm fine.
So if you pay her a little bit more, part of that 10,000, it could go up, and make it like 14,000 for the payroll. So as long as it's within that group. Is this person already?
I'm seeking authorization of council next Thursday.
That's why we told you zeros and years. Yeah. Okay, total personal services is 23,850. Materials and services, advertising is 1,500, up from 2,500. Electric and building fees, 30,000, up from 25,000. Contracted services, 6,000, same. Dues, travel, and conference, 5,000, same. Grant expenses, 0. Postage, 1,400, up from 1,000 last year. Professional services, 4,000, down from 10,000. Miscellaneous, 1,000, same. Planning and administration staff, 13,250, down from 30,000. Code enforcement, 22,000, up from 500. So this is a new.
And I have a question for Rick on that. Does that also cover legal costs?
It
Because
cover-
we probably have some that are gonna have to,
Yeah, legal costs, but not the hearing officer.
yeah, not the hearing officer. Okay, good.
And I think everybody on this board should see that as a victory, knowing that we kind of fought last year to go from 0 to 500. And we all know the community is really
Yeah.
demanding code enforcement, so that's a victory, I think.
Total materials and services, 84,150. Transfer to other funds. 0 operating contingency, 20,000, down from 50,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance is 0. For total requirements of 128,000. Okay. Next one is tourism. 5. So we have our resources. Our cash available on hand is 150,000, up from 113,000. Interest revenue 1,000. Miscellaneous revenue nothing. Transient tax revenue, we decreased that to 50,000. Grants 75,000. Transfer into general fund 0. Total resources is going to be $25,000 less than that.
Clarification, the grants is the Oregon Parks.
Yes,
Okay.
So we have 276,000. And total resources, again, 276,000. Requirements. Contributions, nonprofits, 0. Tourism promotion, 25,000 saved. Wolfie Beach maintenance, 10,000, down from 15,000. City parks maintenance, 12,000. Up from 1,500. Event expense, 20,000, up from 15,000. 4th of July fireworks event display, 40,000, up from 35,000. Total materials and services, 107,000. Capital projects, 100,000. Operating contingency. Okay, we're gonna have to find $25,000 in here.
How about unappropriated into the fund balance?
And then that is for that match on the 75, is that what we're talking about?
Right.
Right, from
Right.
the, what
We
went
dropped
from
that from
75 to 50,
25.
we need to make up for the
Oh,
25.
that,
And I'm assuming we should take it from unappropriated.
seems to me if we're gonna do it.
29,000.
And I had a question, is there's supposed to be a 25,000 in that plan for a Parks and Rec grant, $25,000 match? Where is that 25 coming from in this plan?
You have operating contingency or unappropriated balance.
well, in the capital project, you got 100,000
And you got,
in the capital project, and 75 of that is a grant. And the other 25 would be
Okay,
our,
now I understand.
Okay, so unappropriated is down to 29, for a total of 276,000. Balanced budget. Okay, wastewater treatment plant fund 7. Round up. We have 1,200,000 cash on hand. Up from 574,558 from last year. Interest revenue, 50,000, up from 10,000. Grants, 0. Miscellaneous revenue, 2,000. Sewer assist program, nothing. Monthly sewer revenue, 5% step increase, and be 1,300,000, up from 800,000. Sewer hookup permit revenue, 10,000, up from 1,500.
I had a thought on that. I asked Rick a question about this the other day, and it looks like he's estimated 3 new hookups, and I just wonder if that's undershooting, because I mean, in the past year, I talked to one contractor that's done 7, and you mentioned recently that you had approved 6 more addresses.
I've approved 7 new addresses in my 4 months here. But we're mixing a little bit here. I budgeted for 3 system development charges, which would mean when we get to the other fund, I projected 3. We've had 3 so far this year. And I expect we'll have a 4th. But we get connection money from other ones besides people that pay STCs. I mean, we get connection fees when there's already a line there. We get connection fees when people aren't paying. So the three had to do with how many STCs did I budget for?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Collections revenue is nothing.
And I asked a question about this as well, and we didn't get anything back from collections last year, and I expect to get more. I didn't quite understand why it was either.
It is my understanding that the previous budget officer budgeted funds because they felt they were going to start getting charged for using the collection service, and which they didn't previously get charged for. Now, while we have been, so far we haven't been charged. Let me put it that way. So far, there's been no additional charge
But we
from the
have
collections outfit.
Are there delinquent sewer bills?
47 last time I checked.
last year, the council took action to allow an actual collection. And I think right away, there was a significant amount of people who paid, like I heard a number that was like 30K.
Okay.
So
Just like that.
yeah, I think it was just zero repercussions versus
Yeah.
repercussions.
One of the advantages of the water district is that you can send the little thing on the door saying, in a week, we're gonna shut your water off.
Like, so can't shut the sewer off. That
I know. They wanted us to shut the water off. Okay, transfer in from other funds, on the capital reserve fund 0. Total resources except taxes be levied is $2,562,000. Total resources is $2,562,000.
That's for 1 year of operating our wastewater treatment plant. That's a number that people need to understand when they say we're not doing anything.
So requirements, this is where we spend money. Line 1, payroll, 225,000, is down from 270,000. Social security is 18,000, down from 22,000. Workers' comp, 6,000, same. PERS, 17,000, down from 25. Health insurance, 65,000, same. Unemployment, 5,000, down from 6,500. Total personnel services, 336,000. Materials and services, dues, travel and conference, 7,000, same. License fees and permits, 7,000, same. Advertising and elections, 500, same. Legal fees, 4,500, down from 5,000. Engineering fees, 10,000, down from 15,000. Audit and filing fees, 15,000, same. Contract services general, 98,000, down from 110,000. Contracted services sludge hauling, 60,000, up from 55,000. Contracted repair and maintenance, 50,000, same. Contracted labor, 0. Contracted services steps, STIG, 20,000, same. Repairs and maintenance, 30,000, same. Insurance, 50,000, same. Utilities, electric and water, 60,000, same.
Just a quick note, math, that's $5,000 a month to run the sewer plant. I think that's our single largest city bill. Is that fair?
Okay, telephone and internet, 6,500, same. Postage, 3,500, same. Operating supplies, 50,000, down from 120,000. This is because you separated the chemicals. So the next one is chemicals, which is 70,000. It was not on the list last year. Fuel, 5,000, down from 6,000. Miscellaneous expense, 2,500, down from 5,572. Building maintenance, 5,000, same. Grant expense, 0. Lakeside Airport, 10,000, down from 15,000.
I have a question on that. And what's that, what is that?
Mowing, that's the mowing.
So we're mowing something that costs money.
Kind of like an expense, because we're putting our stuff on their field, so we're paying for it by mowing lawn, so,
We're making the grass green.
yeah.
It's also,
We're making the grass grow.
it's a DEQ requirement that we cut the grass.
Yes, exactly, and it's gotta be a certain height.
Besides that, it interferes with the airplanes. The grass is too high. Okay, step and stake system supplies, 4,000, up from 2,000. Collections expense, 2,000, same. Total materials and services, 570,500. Capital outlay, we have capital outlay, step stake, 21,000, down from 25,000. Capital outlay equipment, 99,500, up from 90,000. Capital outlay pumps, step stake, 25,000, the same. Total capital outlay is 145,500.
I had a question there. Other than the pumps and on line 38, what sort of capital outlay? I just want to know for line 36, what is that? What types of things is that 21?
This is about cleaning our lines, the I issue.
With all three of them, am I right?
It provides flexibility based on the amount that we spend on the I issue.
Do it have more issues with I on step and stag versus the regulars?
I wouldn't think so.
It just costs more to maintain the line for step and stacks.
Okay.
Thanks and lines that are degrading, you know.
I would just imagine they probably degrade quicker than the large industrial stuff.
Yes, they do.
Any other questions? Debt services, 41, we have loan interest is 80,000, down from 82,312. Debt service principal is 80,000, up from 75, excuse me, thousand. Total debt services, 160,000, up from 157,312.
I wonder if I'm the only one that's shocked that the principal and the interest is the same. Does that seem out of balance? And maybe there's an explanation.
They're doing this.
Okay, so it should.
Yeah, because, you know, when you start paying your bills, your interest is higher than, you know, and then pretty soon and then it's gonna be this way.
Do we know how long we've been involved in that?
Kurt was the one who did the refinancing. So that's been 6 years ago.
So maybe we're 6 years or so.
And I don't know how long the loan was.
So this loan was from,
He refinanced
There were actually two loans.
yeah,
One was the north site, one was the line for the prison. We borrowed money to build that collection line from Shutters Creek. We had two separate loans, and Kurt, about 7 years ago, did a refi, saved you folks a bunch of money and made it one loan at that time.
well, he saved the city quite a bit. Okay. Transfer to other funds, transfer to wastewater capital reserve fund, 1,100,000.
Is it fair to say that answers the criticism from the public about that money not going where it should?
Well, I'm trying to make it a little bit more obvious that we're spending it on the new plant instead of having it in our operating fund.
I agree. There's been a lot of discussion about whether those funds were being used, and that should answer those questions.
I would hope so. I'm trying to create a degree of separation that isn't currently present.
You're improving the transparency of the whole situation, which I think is a
Right,
great thing.
from the very beginning, when we had
Yeah.
the rate increase, there should have been between $82,000 and $86,000 gone. gone into this fund.
That whole thing about
It was not.
changing the EDUs was,
But yeah, it was not, so this. We're just basically, okay, we didn't do it, it's done.
Right.
And
And that's another win in
Yeah.
this budget.
transfer to general fund 0, total transfer is 1,100,000. Operating contingency, 100,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance is 150,000. Total requirements, 2,562,000. Okay. Okay, wastewater system development fund number 9. So available cash on hand is 179,764. Interest revenue, 0. Other resources, system development charges, 6,832, up from 5,000. Total resources except taxes to be levied is 186,596, up from 168,769. Total resources is 186,596. Requirements. Engineering services, 0. Total materials and services, 0. Capital outlay. EIR assessment, 0. Capital outlay, total capital outlay is 0. Transfer to other funds. Transfer to wastewater construction fund, 0. Total transfers, 0. Operating contingency, 0. Unappropriated ending fund balance, 0. Everything's 0.
and why is that all zero?
We're not spending any money out of this fund.
Okay, so you just, yeah, what did it be appropriated, in the fund balance?
It should be, it should have that total figure should be placed
Okay.
under the unappropriated
Yeah.
and
The
imbalance.
total requirements would be 186,000.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. You have a question on the floor.
Oh, sorry.
For the city manager, is there any reason why these funds couldn't be transferred into Fund 10? I mean, it seems that's what SDCs are for.
Yeah, but do we know if all the funds in this fund are from SDCs? Can we document that? Can we document? The SDC money has to be kept separate. That's why we have the SDC fund. But we don't currently have the ability to document the sources of our SDC funds.
So if you can't document where it's from, then how do you know it's restricted?
Because it's SDC, SDCs can only be spent on projects which increase capacity. So we will be able to spend this on the wastewater treatment plant because nobody will doubt that that is a part of capacity increasing. We can't spend it on going out and replacing a line in the street. If we're replacing a line in the street, there was already a line there and we're putting in the same size. So because it's limited by state funds to be, by state law, to be only spent on capacity increasing projects, you really need to have an engineering definition done as to what the project is and whether or not, and then it will be a percentage. If we replace the pump out here, pump 2, which needs to be replaced, a couple million, and spend this money, a percentage of that pump 2 will be calculated by an engineer as capacity increasing, and we could spend that amount of money, of this money, on doing that. It's meeting that capacity increasing threshold. One of the unique things about SDCs is state law requires that the municipality produces an annual report as to where you've received it from and where you've expended it. However, state law does not specify what to do with that report. Unfortunately, the city of Lakeside has not done the first leg of that requirement.
Okay, wastewater capital reserve fund number 10. So we have our resources, available cash on hand is $451,055. ARPA grant funds, $9 million. Interest revenue, $20,000. Sewer hookup permit, nothing. Transfer from wastewater fund number 7, nothing. Transfer in, nothing. Wastewater treatment plant fund number 7, $1,100,000, up from $50,000. Total resources except taxes to be levied is $10,571,055, up from $483,139. Taxes collected is nothing. Total resources, $10,571,055. Requirements, materials and services, contract services, 0. Total materials and services is 0. Capital outlay, projects, $1 million. Capital outlay, I&I clean tanks, $100,000. Capital outlay, $21,055. Grant expenses, $9 million. Total capital outlay, $10,121,055. Transfer to WWOTPs 7, 0. Transfers, 0. Operating contingency, $250,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance, $200,000. Total requirements, $10,571,055.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
May I comment?
Yep.
9 million is the figure given us by our city engineer as to the amount of the ARPA money he expects to expend during the next financial year. Because we'll be into construction during this next budget year. But the 9 million figure is based upon our engineer's requests for available funds.
If I may, Rick, can you help us understand line 17, that other billion for capital? Is that our match to the 9 million, or what is that?
It is undefined as to where it will be expended.
So is there a match to the 9 million at all?
No.
Not anything.
Nope.
Okay.
This is the one we've been looking for. The last one. Okay, library fund 21. Line 1, available cash carryover, 140,000, up from 96,210. Library trust restricted funds is 33,247, same as it was last year. Interest revenue is 1,000, up from 100. Trust account interest revenue is 500, up from 70. Transfer into general fund is 0. Other resources, miscellaneous revenue is 1,500, up from 800. Library donation is 0. Special levy revenue is 100,000, up from 900,000. Oh, sorry.
The last one.
Yeah, I know. The eyes are crossing. Ready to read grant is 1,000. Miscellaneous grants is nothing. Total resources except taxes to be levied is 277,247. Total resources 277,247. Requirements, personal services. Payroll is 100,000, up from 98,000. Social Security is 7,000, down from 7,050. Workers' comp is 200, up from 150. PERS is 5,200, down from 6,200. Health insurance is 2,800, up from 2,400. Unemployment is 2,450, the same. Total personal services, 117,650. Materials and services, dues, travel, and conference is 4,000, down from 5,000. Contracted services, 5,000, same. Telephone, 2,000, same. Postage, 200, up from 50. Operating supplies, 10,000, up from 5,500. Donation money spent, 2,000, same. Material subscription and books is 30,000, up from 16,330. Computer supplies and materials, 10,000, up from 5,000. Ready to read grant, 1,200, up from 1,000. Miscellaneous grants, 5,000, same. Miscellaneous expense, 1,700, up from 700. Book and periodicals trust, 250, up from 70. Total materials and services, 71,350. Capital outlay, 30,000.
If there's no income for the miscellaneous grants for the library, why are we spending the miscellaneous grants? Like, is it- $15 and $14 on the.
We have existing funds from this year. That's part of the carryover.
So capital outlay, 330,000. Total capital outlay is 30,000. Transferred from general fund is 0. Total transfers is 0. Operating contingency is 25,000. Restricted trust principal is 33,247. Total requirements is 277,247.
What is the contracted services for the library? Yeah.
I know some of it's IT, because of their computers, and some of that gets paid by the county system uses the same IT company, but what they do with it is upon them to spend. Most of it's IT.
Any questions on the budget?
I have a question, just on the question, I know it's the trust fund and restriction. What is it that's they use that money for? We can't, I mean, they can't be touched. What is it used for?
The, in the library,
Yes,
yeah, they can only use the, interest to buy books or something like that. They can't touch the investment.
I talked to a couple of the volunteers in the library about that, and I thought they couldn't touch it at all, and they said that when it got put there and what it is supposed to be saved for is a new library building. So if they were to build a new building, that they could use that money.
There was a former city council member when he died, he bequeathed the $33,247.
I mean, the reason I was thinking of it was for books and stuff. The material subscription of books was already doing $30,000. You know.
Right,
budgeted
but I
out,
think,
so-
I think what can be spent in the library is from that thing, it's in the interest. It's the
It's
interest,
explained right here.
yeah, it's the interest part, so. Okay, no other questions about, we're all good about this? Okay, so
I'd just like to make a comment. I want to acknowledge Rick for his
Yeah.
much better job than we've seen in a long time with the budget. Good job.
Yeah, I absolutely.
I
It's
agree.
hearing, yes. And I was reading that. I'm thinking, "Oh, damn," you know.
I mean, I made myself a whole list of notes of things that are positive that I should mention more often, because this really does address a lot of the
That,
stuff.
but last year, that was. Last year
I
was
mean,
fun.
we were able to do it in a second meeting, but it took us 2.5 hours. And this is basically just taking us 2 hours with his thing, so, you know, yeah, thank you. You know,
You're well put out.
I really appreciate all the notes
yes,
brought
yeah.
before each actual budget. That explained a lot of questions.
Okay, since we've now done our job, I get to open it to the public hearing. So you guys, if you have any questions or any concerns, it's your turn to say whatever you want.
I have just one little question about the library, the income. Resources for the library is, if I take into consideration the new money that we will be increased, we'll be getting from the new way the library, the county's spending the library. Is that?
May I answer that?
Yeah.
Yes,
So during the last 7 to 8 months, the librarians and the individual library board, as well as the countywide library district board, have been reworking the formula, shall we say, as to how the money is split. And as a result, it is projected that the Lakeside Library will see an increase in revenue. Now, all the librarians came to an agreement, and all the library boards came to agreement, and all the library district-wide board all came to agreement. And they took the agreed upon new formula to our elected officials, and they've been messing with it for the last 2 months. At first, they didn't want to get involved, and now they've met twice or 3 times. And we do not have a final resolution at this point as to what that new formula may be at some future date. It could happen between now and before the council gets this budget on June 13th. I'm not betting on it, but we went with the old formula, knowing that whatever happens is not likely to be less than what we're currently getting. But we are projected to get more when the agreement is signed off by the county commissioners. Does that end?
Yeah, I saw there wasn't a big increase. I know they had decided for 1 year to go with the increase in the reevaluation. So, okay, yeah, just wondering why it hadn't done much.
The council can amend this budget to a certain percentage. And if we get new information between now and June 13th, in that regard, I will propose that change.
Fingers crossed.
any other concerns or questions or anything? Okay, well, I'll close the public hearing. So at this time,
But you make sure there's no one on Zoom that have questions.
I've checked the chat room. I've checked participants. That's all I've gotten so far.
okay, so I need an approval of the budget that we just went.
There's a motion that I thought I put on the table next to you, Madam Chair. I thought I put a motion on. I did not. I did not.
Is this
the budget with the changes.
Well, it doesn't change the total amount, and the motion just deals with the total amount. So you'll need to, versus XXX. You can put in the table
Okay.
top to budget.
Okay. Okay, so I need approval to approve the budget for the 2024 fiscal year in the amount of $15,329,081. Across all resources across all funds. So Alan?
Second.
Would have said that.
Okay, so I have a motion by Alan and seconded by Tom to approve the budget for 2024 fiscal year in the amount of $15,329.
15 million.
15 million, yep. $329,081. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so our recommendation is to give it to the city council. They can do. Okay. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure.
Budget committee members, thank you. I know I gave you a lot of info and I tried to balance it with, so you're informed. But again, you're welcome to follow up. If you got questions, you got inquiries, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for your
It was
service.
a great balance. I thought you did an outstanding job.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
One of the cleaner budgets I've seen in 43 years.
I've been through a lot of that. This was, yeah.
I mean, Lily, I mean, when I first started doing the budgets 9 years ago, I mean, we had like 18. I mean, Melissa actually compacted it. You know, so she, and I like that she changed, you know, she took the tourism money and actually had a tourism money, so. But this was, you know, very, very clean and very easy, you know, to do, so, which I appreciate.
And we got answers to the questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I like how transparent it is too, but we have specific funds. It's not just all going in one general fund and.
All right, no budget meeting for the second meeting?
No, we've never done that.